Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the Application Discovery and Dependency Mapping 2013 Radar. My name is Raleigh Gould and I will be your moderator for today's event. Our featured speaker is Dennis Drogseth, VP of Research at Enterprise Management Associates. Dennis brings over 30 years of experience in various aspects of marketing and business planning for service management solutions. He supports EMA through leadership in business service management, CMDB systems, automation systems, and service-centric financial optimization. And now, without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our featured speaker. Dennis?
Thank you so much, Raleigh. So I'm so glad that you can come to our webinar on application discovery and dependency mapping. It is, I think, one of the most critical areas in the IT market arena and service management certainly, but also perhaps one of the more elusive. And hopefully today we'll give you a feeling for the leading lights and where they are and what they're doing, but also for the broader market in terms of technology trends and how it's evolving and coming together and what to look for. So if you look at the methodology here section, that's maybe the first thing to talk about a little bit. How do we make these decisions? What were we looking at? Some of the evaluation criteria, and you'll see some data that will also help you get a feel for what people are really doing there. Then we'll look into what are 3 use cases and look at vendors across that space, and then wrap up with the conclusion. So in terms of approach and methodology, I would say one of the goals was not to create a linear pattern. It's one of the reasons we had 3 use cases. A linear statement that, there is a single winner and a single loser, and boy, if you're going to invest in application discovery and dependency mapping, here's a solid scale, 1 to 10. It's cut and dried. It's not, in fact, cut and dried. It's very much like you might approach selecting a car or some other much more multidimensional buying choice. And so our goal here was really to provide more of a consumer reports approach where we could highlight design advantages. Any one of the vendors mentioned here could absolutely be your best choice, and I hope I can convey that throughout the webinar today. When I talk about bringing 2 worlds together, you'll see a little bit more what I mean in the coming slide, but we basically, for the first time ever, used 2 different colors in the bubble charts where we highlight functional and architectural power on the one axis, and then on the other axis we highlight administrative ease of deployment, cost advantage, sort of that OpEx, CapEx viewpoint. We had a fairly intensive questionnaire, which is typical of all EMA radars. For this one, we followed up with each of the vendors, in this case of 10 vendors, with a 90-minute, at least, in some cases considerably longer, Q&A about the content. We also had 18 deployment discussions so we could also validate all the nuances behind the answers. In many cases, even the answers, as multifaceted as we try to be, it's still a multiple choice. Once you can understand what's going on in deployments, you get a lot more shading behind that multiple choice. And then we, of course, had the vendors review to make sure from a factual perspective we were not in error. So here are the 10 vendors, and we'll get a much closer look at them as we go further on in the webinar. I'd like to say a couple of things about the general space while we're looking at the list. May help to clarify why these vendors are there. And they, again, are all in various ways innovators and, in some ways, leading lights in their own design point around the ADDM problem set. And I would say I also built this radar around the premise that I believe ADDM is the key to the future of service management itself as you bring CMDB and more real-time concerns together in a unified modeling system. That might be a radical approach, or it might not be to some of you, but that was the vision behind this radar. I'd also weight the fact that we viewed business impact and business values and business outcomes, as well as application and service performance, as very critical in this broader equation of looking at interdependencies. So what is ADDM? To some degree, I just simply call it a dynamic system of relevance, showing how and where application, infrastructure, assets, and business values come together, how and where and why. There are, in this list, 2 groups, and you'll see how they're sort of coded as we go through with each vendor. I've used a different image for each one. One is sort of the classic ADDM multi-use case, and the 3 use cases, which we'll address in a second, involve basically change in config was one, asset was another, and then performance and service impact the third. Obviously, very different kinds of design demands across the 3 spectrums, but all 3 critically dependent on good ADDM. So the multi-use case, which is sort of the classic genesis of ADDM, focus on capturing configuration-related changes, as well as application to infrastructure and across infrastructure interdependencies. Originally more on a 24-hour basis of update, now getting much more fluid and current in some cases. Also a trend throughout, a move to making software as a service or appliance-based solutions and easy deployability much more a reality than it was in the past. For many of the solutions, of course, some of the issues in terms of permissions and getting into security problems can delay deployment, but those are also being streamlined to a large degree. And some of the solutions are fully automated around that challenge. So permissions and credentials hasn't completely gone away, but it's getting better. And I would also say this multi-use case group, many of the classic platforms, for instance, also moving to become more real-time. The performance optimized group, and for those of you who know the vendors on the list, probably will stand out. And again, we'll address them one by one. About 5 years ago, we started to see performance optimized solutions beginning to work with and integrate with CMDB at some level. And that, by the way, was a requirement for this radar, that there be at least a design option for CMDB integration that was a valid and to some degree proven one. And that was a wide range of across some of these in performance optimized. Many of these are a little more automated. They're certainly more real-time, and there are many optimized to more transactional awarenesses, which is typically not the case, although not absolutely not the case, in the multi-use case group. And so the goal here, again, if you think of this as sort of a consumer reports, to provide you buyers with ideas and insights into how to put these pieces together in a meaningful way. Do you need 2 complementary solutions, still a very valid option in many cases today, or are you really looking for a more single integrated approach? And I believe as the market evolves, we'll see a lot of these capabilities coming together in both groups, becoming a little more competitive and less complementary to each other. So a little more on the 3 use cases. Change management and change impact optimization, really the heartland and origin of ADDM. If you can't look at what the impact of changes might be on an application or business service, you're probably not doing ADDM. Service impact and performance management, again, one of the areas of a lot of innovation. We'll discuss that in a little more detail as we go along. And service-aware asset management, really understanding and managing assets through a service context so you can understand the relevance to service delivery, as well as provide better insights into where they are, what they are, and how they're performing. And by the way, a lot of the functionality, and I'll stress that throughout, is not simply done via the ADDM product itself. A lot of it is done through integrations, either CMDB or other monitoring tools or automation capabilities. ADDM is really sort of an intelligent context for optimizing value. So just to be blunt about it, ADDM directly, it's not APM. It's not directly configuration management. It's not directly asset management. It can, however, substantially empower all three. And I believe the value of it is a transcendent design that really holds the potential to redefine service management in the next 5 years. So just to get a feel for what a radar is like and what we look at, just a few highlights of some of the criteria. So one of the things we look at, this is a map of skill sets as mapped to initial deployment. So it would be a different kind of, you'd see the blue bars change a lot if we looked at all the challenges of getting full application business services over time. But for basic deployment, you can see, for instance, across the list of the vendors, systems was the lead along with ADDM administrator, going right on down to asset management near the bottom. Another area that we looked at automation, and by the way, one of the tricks about selecting these charts, we looked at these similar questions in many different ways to get different views. So we looked at automation from many different ways. This particular approach here was to look at automation from the perspective of administrative value. In other words, where could you make efficiencies and make this so very easy to use and run and manage. So updates to CMDB, performance and role-based alerts, going right on through to asset audits, alerting for security issues, automated data quality checks. There's some of the things we were looking at. A couple of other key areas. We looked at full-time employee requirements for basic discovery, first application, up to 15 applications, and then ongoing administration. And in fact, for the most part, most of these, with the exception of the 15 applications, were less than one full-time employee, some even a half. And 15 tended to be 1 to 1.5 if I averaged it out. Ongoing admin was probably around 1, it could be less. And of course, ongoing admin can be difficult to gauge with ADDM because it's such a part of so many other initiatives. We look at keystroke counts for scheduling updates, which could range from 3 to more than 10 based on vendor requirements. The move to virtual appliance and software as a service, which was hugely dramatic in this market and surprised a lot of the vendors when they looked over their shoulders at some of their competitors. 6 of these 10 are software as a service delivered today. Of those 6, 5 also have on-premise. And then, of course, ease of CMDB, all the capabilities to work with the CMDB. Agent and agentless, we didn't have a religion about that, and each of these vendors was, I would say, extremely creative as well in how they approached this. If I were to say that we had a little bit of a favorite, it was probably good to have both options, but in reality, we really looked at what was being done and how it was being achieved. And you can see at some level, there are a lot that were primarily this or primarily that. Over the half had some mix, at least at some level. And one of the things that I thought was very nice in a few of the solutions was the ability to optimize and leverage agent data from other third-party sources. When it came to sort of agentless breadth, so to speak, you can see again pretty much everyone, and this is so all the vendors that supported agentless discovery all supported WMI or SNMP or flow-based capabilities. And you can see it kind of gets narrow down to layer 2, which was a little more restrictive. And then some of the capabilities and other, you might see things like JMX or JDBC or LDAP type of things, which actually we looked at in other questions. So domain breadth was very important as well. ADDM, like CMDB, is designed to support many multiple stakeholders and bring a more cohesive set of insights so that they can work together more effectively. And having a too narrow a domain focus is not really optimized for ADDM. So this was native breadth overall, and you could see application insights, application infrastructure insights, and custom as well as non-custom apps pretty pervasive. Whereas if you get down to mainframe support, that was a little more towards the bottom there, along with VDI environments or native asset inventory. Most asset inventory was done through integration, a much narrower perspective. So anyway, you get a feel for that. That was one of the things we looked at. We looked at domain breadth through integrations as well. This was another take on integration. We probably looked at integrations about 10 different ways throughout. This was just basic sort of high-level looking at where are you integrating, third party, and you see, interestingly enough, network was the top there, then app performance, not surprisingly, in different types of app performance, systems, right on down, getting to disaster recovery or app dev towards the bottom. CMDB and CI integrations, also very critical, and we looked at that in across all use cases. They were most dramatically important, of course, in change, config, and in asset, where a lot of the asset values came through the CMDB integration. They also supported more multiple state capabilities, such as desired or planned in future, which are very hard to do without a CMDB capability, or an inbuilt type of CMDB design, as some of these solutions are beginning to deliver. And how easy was it to update, how efficient, how capable, manual mapping and automated updates, and then actually automated analysis in some cases for differences. Last, sort of the general market look here. Again, I believe that ADDM is sort of a fundamental pillar for service management going forward. So bringing roles together was very key as well. This gives you a feel for some of the span, ranging again, top for application systems and service, of course, network coming in close, down, executive support being closer to the bottom, CAB review being strong, but kind of in the middle there. So interesting kind of spread across the vendors. So now we'll look at each of the use cases, and you'll see the first bubble chart. Change management and change impact analysis. So as I mentioned, you can see immediately which vendors in purple are sort of the multi-use case, and which vendors in blue are performance optimized. And so since radars require rules, it's very important for you to understand what those rules were, what we were looking for. Here, CMDB integration was very important, proven and established. But we also were very interested in some of the more real-time aspects, and of course the cross-domain capabilities. A little closer look. One of the analytics for change management includes, so we look at change support both in terms of development and DevOps, and then in terms of production. This is a list for production. We also looked at a lot of other factors around change. This gives you a bit of a feel for some of the choices. Analytics to support change overall, then impact on systems, impact on networks, CAB support, change advisory board, if you're not familiar with the acronym, right down to specific DevOps requirements, of course, storage a little bit in the middle there. So you get a feel for some of the things we looked at, again, through integrations. Now let's start our countdown on the 10 leading lights that we looked at in the radar. So BMC was exceedingly strong, had a uniquely high position in the change management, change impact analysis arena. It is obviously one of the big market definers, not only in CMDB overall, but in ADDM as well. Acquired Tideway a while back. That was itself one of the very leading capabilities. So BMC APM discovery and dependency mapping. It's agentless, on-premise virtual appliance, a value leader, both in change and as well as service-aware asset management. Native extensions in Remedy and Remedy on demand, and BMC has done a lot to move to software as a service capability in its service desk arena, which also helps a lot in terms of deployment efficiencies. The virtual appliance has gotten high marks increasingly from users as well. Very strong third-party capabilities, unique support for security. BMC's had the best security overall support, and everyone raved about their custom patterns and how they could support unique applications through custom patterns. One thing I'll mention that may be a bit obscure to most of you, but is something that I've been beginning to focus on. BMC leverages a graph database, which is very fluid compared to relational in terms of mapping interdependencies, something that began with Tideway. IBM, a very strong, consistent position, and obviously a market leader in across the board in all three use cases. IBM Tivoli Application Dependency and Discovery Manager, primarily agentless, but is able to capitalize on resident agents, which is a very strong feature, and is on-premise currently. But it got value leader in change management and change impact analysis, and a strong value in service impact and performance. One of the things I've seen is a lot more cost-effective investments from IBM in this arena, surprising to, I think, many in the market. So very affordable capabilities. Also with Smart Cloud Control Desk as delivered as a software as a service capability, a lot of efficiencies there from integration as well, making IBM more deployable. IBM stand out as well in mainframe, and it has a nice three-part structure for its discovery. Makes it very rationalized and easy to plan. ManageEngine was a value leader in service impact and a strong value in other two use cases. It got the award for vendor on the move because it's about to make an announcement that will support a more automated capability between its application discovery and its CMDB. So its positioning in this radar was based on its current shipping capabilities, and you know, if we had the resource to create a radar that would evolve with every announcement, you would see its position move in the coming months as the new features kick in. So we looked in this radar, and I should have mentioned about 2.5 years ago, we also did our first ADDM radar. We only had, I think, about 7 vendors there. We have 10 here. And at that time, we focused ManageEngine around its app performance capability. Here we looked at its full IT 360, a very nice suite. One of the things we really liked was the integrated project management, integrated search, in a way that seemed very pragmatic and helpful to the broader initiative. And their tagline, which they live up to, is a lot of the, 90% of the function, but drastically cost-effective value. Neebula is a real leading light in terms of a number of things. One of them is its vision of what ADDM is and can be and should be. And they really, in some respects, are on the sort of borderline between being both multi-use case and performance optimized. As ManageEngine evolves, it's probably moving into that borderline space as well. Nebula was a value leader in service impact and strong value, very strong value in the other two. Absolutely today, fully automated and very rich capabilities for CMDB integration with a broad set of third-party solutions. And the solution itself can also work as sort of a CMDB on its own. It's interesting if you've watched this market evolve for the last 10 years or so, or let's say 8 years or so. Initially, some of the ADDM products came out as CMDBs. And then, of course, sort of what I call the Académie Française approach to market definitions said, no, has to be this database, et cetera, et cetera. In reality, we're seeing this sort of evolve back to sort of a bifocal approach to say, wait a minute, we need a very real-time kind of system. App dependencies, in some ways, a little more optimized than classic CMDB for that value. And I think Neebula is sort of standing in that vision. It's very dynamic, as well as very supportive of third-party investments. And its Service Watch is going back to the beginning here. It's an agentless, and it's both on-premise and software as a service, which is also a plus. Service impact and performance management. You see the shift, not surprising. And again, some of the rules here were, what we were looking for was transactional insights mapping back into a broader change management system. We were also looking for business impact values to sort of bring that business performance together with the capabilities for broader infrastructure awareness, change, and other insights, and the analytics surrounding that. So one of the many questions we looked at for this environment included, of course, real-time analytics into performance. That's the sort of mainstay, natively integrated either through the product itself. In this case, in all the value leaders, it was pretty much through their own solution there, but it could be a third party. It was really a question of how efficient it was, how real-time it was. And then we were looking at capacity, queries, and then if you go down to cross-domain, it gets a little less broadly supported. And down at what seems to be 80% insights into service performance and business impact. And I'll say that here and a couple of the charts, the numbers are very high. And the reason they're high, that is there's a lot of shades of gray between having an integration somewhere that does it at some level and having a very rich functional capability. So we have really had to look underneath the covers. We had to look at deployments. We had to assemble sort of insight into design features as to what was really going on. But at a sort of a checklist level, this is sort of the data we came up with. AppEnsure, brand new solution, I believe memory serves, announced in July as a shipping product. The newest in the radar. It's agentless and both a virtual appliance and software as a service. Got a value. We were able to talk already with one of the customers. Got a value leader rating in service impact and performance. Was a strong value and change impact and targeting asset. I believe it could also improve a lot. We had the challenge of trying to assess it in context with being a new solution on the one hand and what we could validate through deployment on the other. So it's probably another vendor that will, if you could watch the bubble charts move, especially in some of the other use cases. Very dynamic, very focused on dynamic currency, very focused on design anyway with integrations, which we believe will bear out in the future as further deployments evolve. One of the fascinating things that it's done, integration with Splunk for big data analysis to really support a richer capability in change and change impact, integration with VMware LogSight for log management. And again, we were already able to have a customer validate some of the capabilities, even though it's just begun to ship. So it won the award for newest innovator. OpTier, strongest position overall in the service impact and performance area for a couple of reasons, and we'll look at those. Primarily agent-based, but not exclusively. A virtualized appliance and software as a service. I would say no single vendor has more dramatically, and this was clearly validated through deployment conversations, more dramatically made a step into really becoming deployable, easy to use, easy to administer, in the last year or so for a number of reasons. Software as a service certainly being first and foremost, agent deployment, though, overall being more automated as well. And it also has a proven and validating history with CMDB integrations, which was very important for this radar. It uses what it calls active context tracking to sort of bring that business and transaction focus to bear back into the CMDB. So it's a great complement to some of the core, more asset-oriented, for instance, functions out there. And it has what it calls its advanced analytics module integration, which really brings that business view back into the world. We talked about the improvements in deployability, and echoed through its customers. Over the last 6 months, I've talked to a number of OpTier customers. Riverbed, really coming from the OpNet side with the acquisition. AppMapper Expert is a mix of agentless and agent-based, and it's both on-premise and software as a service. It was a value leader in service impact and performance, a strong value in change, and a targeted value in service-aware asset management. There's probably no other solution fully as automated in terms of understanding policies, relationships, and interdependencies in an automated way as AppMapper Expert. And to do that, however, it relies on integrations within the broader Riverbed portfolio, which are native and natural to the solution, some of which are required and some of which can extend the value. I would say it's very currently focused on the service performance space. However, if you look at the broader capabilities of OpNet and now Riverbed, the capabilities for change and change impact, and ultimately even the capabilities for asset are there. They're very real and very strong. They have not yet been fully optimized or externalized. Service-aware asset management, third use case. Once again, you see the purple, the multi-use case vendors, very strong, and a big spread because, frankly, asset management was not so much a focus for some of the vendors in this radar. A big spread as we go down below. And you'll see in the next chart, again, deceptively high numbers, because a lot of people could say, well, if we integrate with a CMDB or this or that, we can do these things. So we had to look a lot under the covers here, but you can see some of the things we were interested in: basic inventory, custom and capabilities for asset out of the box, license management, portfolio planning, and then green IT initiatives at the bottom, but something that we believe will be growing in importance over time. ASG got an award. I'll just jump right to that and then go back to the top. Most improved. And one of the reasons is it combined two kinds of big jumps. One is it delivered a software as a service as well as an on-premise capability since the last radar. And the other is it integrated its asset inventory discovery, its TrackBird, with its DDM capability. So it's sort of on two fronts, both in terms of deployability and in terms of functionality, made some big jumps. So it got most improved. It was a value leader in service-aware asset management, and as well as change impact, and a strong value in performance. I've already kind of mentioned the combination of functions. It has unique integrations with AppEnsure and iQuate for basically lifecycle asset management, data normalization functionality, which is unique, and only one other vendor really has that kind of integration. We'll get to them in a moment. Powerful support for custom applications has always been an outstanding feature for ASG. Federated adapter engine, something we've been very impressed with. And their deployments stand up to that. Able to keep our third-party tools and make them work. Over the years, nothing seems to make people happier then to make the investments they have work better. HP, a real leader in this arena. It's universal discovery, primarily agentless, currently on-premise. I should say one of the many of the on-premise vendors, HP included, are looking to move to a software as a service solution going forward. Value leader in change management and serviceware asset management, and a very strong value in service performance and service impact. And so had the highest overall combined score from a functionality perspective, that vertical axis, if you looked across all three use cases. Very bidirectional integration with its runtime service model, very mature, and gets high marks in the deployments for working between DSM and its universal CMDB, which is embedded in the solution. It also has moved to a fully integrated asset inventory capability. So in that sense, parallels what ASG did in terms of bringing inventory and dependency mapping together. Very strong change analytics with UCMDB configuration manager, and just the breadth and diversity of what HP can bring to the party is very impressive. ServiceNow, its ServiceNow application dependency mapping is agentless and a very mature and efficient software as a service capability with value leader rankings in change and change impact and serviceware asset management, and strong value in service impact and performance. And I want to highlight a couple of bullets down. It doesn't really depend on integrations. It's a native part of the platform. And for a application discovery and dependency mapping capability, what that means is it can natively inform pretty much anything that's relevant within the platform without having to go through a separate integration or the management of a separate integration. That has been one of ServiceNow's sort of leading premises from an architectural perspective. And since ADDM is a sort of enabling foundation for any number of values, the asset management database, change management data, et cetera, governance-related data, it's a natural fit. Like IBM, interestingly enough, has a similar sort of structure in terms of stage integration. It leads the pack in the combination of versatility and cost efficiency. Really also a very fast-growing vendor in the service market management market space. And so and also one thing I'll mention here, recently acquired Riverbed for analytics supporting governance, very relevant to change management, change impact, and overall IT service management efficiencies. The last slide before we go to Q&A. Again, I believe ADDM is going to help to redefine the service management market in the next 5 years and will become much more central. Cloud is, in fact, one of the drivers, and I'll just mention some data that I'm not putting the chart up for you, but we did some work in ecosystem cloud, and we looked at ADDM and CMDB-related values. A lot of vendors are asleep at the wheel thinking that, well, cloud is a brave new world, has Wizard of Oz behind the screen, we don't need these technologies. Just the opposite. When we looked at very successful cloud deployments from a delivery of business services perspective, those with CMDB, that group was twice as likely to have a CMDB deployed, twice as likely to have ADDM for change and config, and 1.5 times more likely to have ADDM for performance. So cloud is actually an accelerator for ADDM. I do believe the multi-use case and a performance optimized will continue to evolve towards a more common landscape. And one of the reasons we kind of went out on the limb and did this radar the way we did, it is an enabler, so you need to kind of understand who you are and what you're looking for. And hopefully this work we did here in the radar will help you do that. And now, Raleigh, I'll turn it over to you for Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. Before we jump into Q&A, I did want to mention several of you have asked when the report will be available. The summary is available on the EMA website, And the full report will be available next week. You'll receive an email from Enterprise Management Associates letting you know when the report is available and how you can access it. So now I'm going to go ahead and we have a couple of minutes for questions, Dennis. So let's start with this one. Should I buy ADDM based on use case? Is that what you're suggesting in this report?
That's a good question. And the answer is yes, to some degree. You should certainly understand your use case priorities, but obviously over time you want to evolve an ADDM strategy to support all three use cases. So, and then there are other factors, which is, one of the reasons we have the axes we do is to help you understand some of the trade-offs between functionality, deployability, or cost efficiencies. So there, again, if you look at the analogy of buying a car, well, so you might say, is my use case commuting or is it driving cross-country? That's a good place to start. But you might be also very interested in, miles per gallon or conversely the stereo capabilities, right? So we try to provide you with all that guidance.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. And let's take one more question. Can you say more about why you see ADDM as the spine to service management in the future?
So, I hope I've done a good job hitting it down a little bit already. I think really one of the reasons EMA has done a lot of consulting as well as research in CMDB. And back when we started that data research and work, we had what we call the two CMDBs. One was a process-centric CMDB that was not real-time, really supported the change advisory board, and follows a lot of the classic model of what we've seen in many CMDB deployments to date. The other was a real-time system with the same service modeling that was fully current, was fully able to support transactional awareness, and was reflexively integrated with that more process-centric capability. If you look at that requirement, nobody's going to call that real-time system in 2013 the real-time CMDB for various market reasons. But if you look at that broader requirement, how do those two pieces come together? They come together through ADDM.
Excellent. Thank you, Dennis. And I wanted to thank our audience for joining us today. I know a couple of you had questions that we were unable to get to. I will send those on to Dennis for you. And I will be sending you a follow-up email tomorrow that will include the follow-up on-demand webinar, and I will also send you an email when the full report is available. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.